This is a video of our 2018 trip into beautiful Atikaki Park in the eastern side of Manitoba. It abuts right up to Caribou Provincial Park in Ontario. 2018 is going to be remembered as the year of the wildfires in North America, and we have not escaped it up here. We postponed our trip for a week because of a huge 70,000 acre fire that was too close to our intended route. Our trip started with our arriving in Bassett, Manitoba, and Tanya and Jonathan at Blue Water Aviation got us loaded up, and Jonathan, as he flew us out, we were going to start our trip on Noname Lake, and he was a little concerned about some of the remnants of the fire, so he flew us over that and we looked at it, and it was just wisps of smoke in some small places. So we did elect to start our trip on Noname Lake. Jonathan had to pick up a boat at an outpost camp, so he had permission and he landed us right at the dock of the outpost camp, and that made it very convenient to get my pack canoe 165 put together. Jim and I wasted no time, and the second day in camp we did that exploration up a creek heading north from Noname through some small waterways that were just beautiful. We headed up toward Black Lake until our time ran out. We turned around and came back to our camp on Noname. First full day up in Atikaki in 2018, and Jim and I are up pushing up a little waterway, one of the backcountry routes up here. I think we'll probably find a lot of this kind of a thing on this route. Little rapids like this, and everybody just walks over the rocks to get through. I don't see any obvious way for a portage. The walls are so steep. I thought there might be some pretty small waterways above Noname on this little backcountry route to the east, but you can see these little lakes are bigger than one would think. Beautiful country. This is a little different kind of canoe country. Stream, it's plenty deep right here. A few logs across and some beaver dam little starts, but very varied terrain and beautiful passage if you like smaller waters. Here's another little spot as we work our way north above Noname that no obvious portage and really not worth putting one in. We just walk over about 40 meters of rock here, continue on our way. As the days went by, we were constantly watching the smoke increase, and as we headed away from the area of the fire, the smoke was getting worse, and we knew we had to head north. But one thing I want to emphasize here is that we had inReach, which allowed us a two-way texting. We were in constant contact with Blue Water Aviation and Tanya and Jonathan, and also I had my satellite phone, so I could be contacting my wife at home for weather reports and fire reports. So even though some of the scenes that you might see look a little bit too hairy to be in, we were in communication, and we were ready to be evacuated if we had to be. This is morning number 3, about 10:30, and we packed up and we're leaving the main body of Noname Lake and heading north on a big channel that runs north. And we've got one little 90-meter portage, but otherwise our next camp is about 6 miles ahead. We've been watching the weather and pretty tricky with the winds, but we think we're going to be out of the smoke for several days. We'll be in a good spot up there. There are so few paddlers on most of these waters up in Atikaki Park that you don't see very many campsites. And since campfires are illegal, you really don't see the campfire rings in either. So, but this spot ended up being a beautiful campsite that I'd spotted a year ago when I came by. And I thought it'd be a good spot for a good camp for a group, and it's worked out very well that way. We have no trouble finding 4 nice tent pads, a nice place for the screen tent, a place to cook out there, nice big rock with a view. Kind of like probably a 4-star camp. This is our typical kitchen array, that about everything you see here except the slat grill and maybe 1-2 stoves, they fit inside the bucket. We always like to have a nice safe place to cook, so this big slab of rock over here became our kitchen counter. It's a slat grill and a few stoves under it and third pot. We tend to eat very well last night, so since we wanted to be cooking up some steaks in one and having some coffee on another and boiling up some real potatoes on another pot, we needed all of that. Yes, we tend to pack a little heavy, but we do like our luxuries. We had our first portage of the day yesterday, and I realized when I had kind of improvised and thought I'd improved my yoke for my pack canoe at home, but I didn't have it put together, and ended up I hadn't allowed for the fabric resistance along the side, so I had to trim up my yoke. So got out my camp saw. Now I know everybody talks about their silky 14s and everything else, but I made a real quick job of my improvising there, because I kind of like my John Sered 14 the best for work up here. It was a rough trip going up from Noname up to Kawasechuang Lake. But we found a nice camp on the big rapids there, just a fantastic campsite. And the first day we were there was just a rest day. We got recovered from our long trek up through some rocky portages and some little rapids. We had to walk the boulders in order to get all of our gear through on our way up to that lake. And then This is the morning of day 6 of our trip. Yesterday we traveled over from the north part of Noname Lake over to Kawasechuang Lake. It's a nice big lake. We're camped here in the rapids that flow into the lake. Fantastic campsite with a lot of opportunity. We've got views like this as we scan around and look. And big long rapids, and the campsite pretty much takes over the whole rapids along the side. You can see up there we've got our guys are working. We've got some tents, screen tent. Beautiful spot. Then Jim and I went out exploring a big portage, and when we came back to camp that evening about 4 o'clock, we could see smoke and fire not that far away from our camp, and so we made the immediate decision that we had to evacuate and get further away. So we packed up camp and headed about 1.5 miles north to the edge of a big island out in the middle of some big water. Jim and I were out having a good time, and coming back to our camp there on the left, and down the other narrows we could see smoke pouring across, and now I can even see fire licking in the trees. So we packed up real quick and we're heading north several miles for camp for the night. After our evacuation from that last camp down in the rapids, fortunately Kawasechuang Lake is really big, and we were able to travel north a few miles and get out of the smoke path, and came across this really nice campsite up on a big slab, nice and flat, a lot of tent sites. Really a nice view. It's gonna be a little hot out here in the sun, but we'll make do. A little different than the rapids. We've got a big lake out in front of us. This is looking down toward the campsite that we evacuated from. You can see the smoke drifting across it, kind of hazy down that way. The humidity's still fairly high, so with the fires over in the horizon haven't kicked up, but as it dries off we'll have smoke plumes off to our south. Every day when the wind picks up and the humidity drops, these fires fire up again in about the same places. This one today is going really good. all those big open flames and all that smoke got us a little nervous, so we decided we'd pack up and we moved north about another mile up toward the other end of the lake and give us a little more of a buffer. Things are burning pretty hot down there yet. The wind's still up, but tomorrow we're going to be up early and head north, get up on big Sasaginnigak Lake or Lake Sass, raise the situation. What's coming up is our third campsite on Kawasechuang Lake as we kept moving away from the fire as it encroached. I want to emphasize again that we had our in-reach device with communication. We had a satellite phone, so we were watching things very closely. These next images of that night as the fire really showed up, it was made for an interesting evening. During the night, the wind finally died down and the humidity come up, and that big fire just calmed right down to nothing. But I'm sure as the winds come up today and it dries out, it'll be raging again. But this whole horizon was ablaze last night with that red you just saw in those pictures. But fortunately, enough of a breeze has stayed that all of the smoke from those dying fires has gone the other way. Otherwise, this could have been a very smoky morning. With no rain coming and those fires raging pretty good, they would die out at night, but then as it dried out in the daytime and the wind came up, they would always get fired up again. And with our reports, again from my satellite phone, and my wife was watching the maps at home, and she eventually informed us that Noname, where we had first camped, that had all burned up, and it had burned up as far as Black Lake, which with that information we altered our route and decided that for safety purposes, we were going to go out and spend the rest of our trip on the big Sasaginnigak Lake, where we knew the winds would keep the smoke away from us and we didn't have to worry about any fire danger encroaching upon us in the night. Does anyone recognize who this is that defaced these? Hey Jim, I'm trying to find the hot pad.
I think I know where it is.
There you go. No, no, no. I want the good one.
Cassidy's. This
Yeah.
one. Oh yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. That is a good one. She did a good job on that. This one. Yeah, that holds on pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Just ask her. She'll make more for you if you want them. So.
They're very handy.
Yeah, they are. One thing nice about it, keeps your hand warm when you're pouring. It's a nice pot holder. Thanks, honey.
We had a real nice main camp, but a couple days to go and the wind came up so much out of the northeast and about 50 degrees in the morning that Jim walked around the corner down here to where our bath site was and said, hey, it's really nice down there. So we just packed up our needed supplies and made a temporary camp down here out of the wind with a little sun. Made it pretty nice. seen a couple of caribou in the area and a lot of old sign and some droppings and tracks, so we're just trying to see if we can spot one in here. We haven't seen any fresh bear sign, but there's sure a lot of rocks overturned with the moss disturbed that they've been coming through here and flipping rocks looking for food. My guess is that all this upturned lichen is where the caribou were here in this sun-drenched opening in the wintertime, scratching through the snow and turning it up. A fantastic 16-day canoe trip in Atikaki is coming to a close. Probably the most beautiful and clearest air we've had of the whole trip because of the smoke and some haze, but we are awaiting our float plane pickup and then a short flight back to Passette and the long drive back to Illinois. But it's been a good time up here.